Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to CEO Interviews, a production of Agoracom in which we take the time to speak with small cap executives about what's going on at their companies. Today is a special day. I'm really happy to have on for the first time ever as a client, Alan Barry-Laboucan, President and CEO of Advanced Gold, trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol AAX. Now, for those of you who are new to the story, that's going to be a lot of you. We're going to get into it in a second, but first, Alan is a longtime friend of Agoracom, and the reason for that is because he's been a long time, and I don't want to toot his horn, but he's been a long time acknowledged expert in the world of mineral resource exploration and mining. He's been on television numerous times as an analyst. He's had several analyst reports, client reports, analysis over the years, and he became famous for the saying, the truth machine is always going to be in the drill bit at the end of the day. He doesn't color code things. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. If he doesn't like it, he says it. That's made him the target of some people who don't like what he says, but for the most part, over the years, and Alan and I have done dozens of videos together, including trading competitions, one-on-one trading, at Christmas time, tax loss selling, where Alan won 1 out of 12, I think, or something like that. That's why he's putting his hands up. And our videos have been watched by an enormous amount of people, for enormous amounts of time. And we're glad to have him back on because I'm super proud of him. Because for the first time, he's got his own deal as a president CEO of a company, and that's why we're with him. Hey, Alan, welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, George. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, it sure has been a long time since we did a video together, but I'm really excited about getting back in front of the Agoracom audience. I know we have lots of friends that watched our shows in the past.
Yep.
And as you said, I'm kind of transitioning out of my market commentary days, and I'm building my own company right now with Advanced Gold. And so let's talk about why I've made that move.
Before we get into that formality note here, do I have to call you El Presidente now because you're actually in Mexico and you're president CEO of a company, or can I just call you Alan?
No, you should call me El Presidente, I think. That's
Well, if I can, I'm going to find the El Presidente. I think Duran Duran had a song called El Presidente, so I may put a music mix over this.
There you go. Thanks, George.
So let's talk about Advanced Gold. Your company owns 100% interest in the Tabasquena Silver Mine. It's located in the Zacatecas, which has produced approximately 40% of all the silver ever mined in Mexico. Tight share structure, just 16.3 million shares outstanding. Insiders own around 30%. And here's the great part. Early drill success already. You've had 4 holes out, and you've had four successes. So you've had some great movement in your stock price. Not that we're necessarily here to talk about stock price, but that obviously is an indicator that the market has liked what it's seen. And even though it's had a bit of a sell-off, which happens on venture, it's a good sign. So let's talk about Tabasquena, and tell me if I'm pronouncing it correctly. What made you move from Canada to Mexico? Because that's how committed you are to this project. You moved from Canada to Mexico in order to work on this project. Because you've seen hundreds, maybe thousands of projects in your life. What's so special about this? And I'm dead serious, because that's a big commitment you're making for stuff you've been seeing your whole life.
Yeah, well, George, in my career as an explorationist and then as a market commentator as well, I have looked at hundreds, thousand projects. And my experience was generally mostly in Canada, in remote places that were costly to go up to, costly to do exploration. And, you know, when I came down here to Mexico, I did my first property visits, and everywhere I went, George, there was a road going to the project. For example, there's a road that bisects our Tabasquena claim blocks, a paved road with power right beside everything. I was totally blown away by the infrastructure. And why this meant so much to me, George, is that, you know, I got in the business in 1993, and back then, you know, you would see companies go from 10 cents to $10, 20 cents to 25, 30, $40. And, you know, you've noticed in the last 10 years or so that that doesn't happen very often anymore.
Less and less, that's for sure.
And a lot of that has to do with blown out share structures, George. And why companies get those blown out share structures is because they're doing expensive exploration. So now, you know, I come down here, I fall off the turnip truck, and I find a place where there's roads and power everywhere. And I happen to have taken over the running of what at that time was pretty much a shell with not a lot of stock out. And I thought that, you know, this could be very, very exciting to put these two situations together. Low-cost exploration in a company that doesn't have a lot of stock out, that I own a pretty big chunk of. The management owns about 30% of our stock in total. And so it's a tight deal. And you know me, George, I'm not interested in messing around with half-assed projects. I
tell everyone at home, when we had all those videos, all those years, you would talk about companies like Premier Gold Mines, which today is still successful and moving forward, and you would call out other companies when you would knock down the results that people otherwise thought were so great, but they were sugarcoating them away or presenting them in a way that was maybe misleading, and you would hammer it. So yeah, your integrity, all kidding aside, friends are not friends, your integrity on that part when it comes to that is beyond reproach.
Yeah, well, I mean, people can just go look at my hundreds of videos and everything, and you know, they can see what I'm always talking about: the truth machine, the drill rig, where you're putting the drill holes, why you're putting them there. So that gets me back to your original question there, George, about this particular project.
Sure.
And why I think that this could be a company maker, and we could be one of the companies that help take the junior market out of the doldrums. You need someone to come up with success. We've only drilled our first 4 holes into it. We hit what we were shooting for with each of those holes. For example, one of those holes cut across 4 veins in a 200-meter width. And another, we hit 3 veins in one hole. One hole we drilled below the oxides. Now, why this is important, George, I don't want to get too geological on everybody here, but in these epithermal veins, I'm not really reinventing the wheel down here. They're very well known. Well, how well known they are goes back to the point you made earlier, George, about 10% of the world's silver production comes from the state of Zacatecas. And one of the leading places in Zacatecas is the city of Zacatecas, as well as Fresnillo, that's not very far away from here. As the crow flies, we're about 40 or 50 miles from Tabasquena to Fresnillo. And why I bring that up is, at Fresnillo, you have hundreds of years worth of mining data. And they've been able to pretty much tell you at what depth you need to drill in order to get where you're going to find the precious metals and the base metals. We're looking at an epithermal vein field that we've found so far. Our first drill program, we found 3 new veins. We drilled underneath the known vein where there was historical mining in the oxide zone, but we went underneath it, and that's where we found our high-grade high-grade discovery zone. But what I think is super important that not a lot of people understand, George, is For us, that window of where you're going to find the the precious metals is only one of our holes went into that. But what those veins up in the oxides do for us, it helps us target going deeper. The real important stuff is getting more holes into that precious metals window, which is at about somewhere around 2,000 feet above sea level to about 2,300, or sorry, take 350 off of that. What is that? 1,650. So that's your window. We have to start getting a bunch of holes into that window. We've only had one so far, George, and it hit 1.7 meters of 9.64 grams of gold with a high-grade intersection of about a half a meter of 12.5 grams.
Now, let me stop you there for a second, because we'd have that conversation about other drill results, about other companies in our past lives on videos. So relatively speaking, because, you know, numbers, you put that number somewhere else in the world and it's a dud. You put it somewhere else in the world, it's Fort Knox. So relatively speaking to where you are and what's happened in and around you, how exciting is that kind of a result?
Well, you know, I'm over the moon since I saw the results of that hole, George, because I see an analogy in mag silver. Mag silver, what made mag silver was the Juanicipio epithermal vein field that they found that is 40 or 50 miles from us. We have the same kind of rock. We're looking in the same kind of epithermal vein system. Now we're looking in the same window where we should find the precious metals. And so why I'm over the moon about that, George, is that I now know that this, one thing is that we're on a field of these epithermal veins. We've already found 4 of them. One of them was historically known. 3 of them are brand new. There's more of those out there, I think, for us to find. The biggest thing, though, is to get to depth. Now, what separates us, and I think makes us really profoundly unique, and why I say I'm over the moon, is that those mines over there at Fresnillo were 2 to 4 meter wide veins. We've already had a 20 meter vein, well, 19.5 meter vein.
We'll call it 20. We'll give you.
Yeah, and it's not true. It hasn't been calculated for true width, but let's somewhere around 19 meters. That's significantly thicker. We've proven in 3 spots now, George, that as we get deeper, we're getting 10 to 20 meter thickness on the veins. La Nina, one of the new discoveries, we've got down and it's about 10, 12 meters wide. Tabasquena, we've hit it at depth and it's wider, and we followed it along strike and it's wider along strike as well. I keep telling people, George, I think we're on a big system here. And why I can confidently say that is when you see this many veins and the thickness of those veins, especially when you're in an area where 2 to 4 meters is what you should expect, this is a big deal. And I, like I said, George, I put it into a company that has no stock out. Did you have any idea that you'd be beating the typical width by several magnitude? Did you have an idea going in? Or was that part a surprise, despite all the research and homework you did going into it? Was that part a big surprise? You know, George, that brings up a good point. And it's a point that, you know, the people that have been in this business for a long time and have seen success, what you generally want to see, George, is you start out small, and as you go deep, it gets bigger. Most people in our business, the story is very big at the start, but then it gets very small as you move on. And every step along the way so far, George, it has exceeded my hopes. I would have been happy to see 2 to 4 meter wide epithermal vein that continues at depth. This thing's going like this. In elephant country, we're where 10% of the world's silver comes from, George. I'm not looking for something small here. I'm looking for something really, really big. And so far, even this exceeded your expectations from the sounds of it. You were waiting to find something like this. I was happy with 2 to 4 meters of going down. And if it kept going for 2 to 4 meters that way, and we found a couple of other veins that were around the same, I'd have been more than happy, George. That's what makes the mines over at Fresnillo, 2 to 4 meter veins. But we're looking at 20 meter veins, 10 meter veins, 12 meter veins, along strike and at depth.
What kind of reaction have you gotten? I mean, I saw what happened to your share price long before you became a client, because obviously we're friends. I'm watching your success, and bam, right? So we know what the market thought. What kind of response have you had from other industry professionals, other geologists, other companies when they saw it? Maybe you had no reaction, so I have no idea where your answer is going to be, but I got to presume a couple of people must have called you up and said, Alan, whoa, you know, what have you got here?
Yeah, I've had a couple of friends that are watching it closely, and they've said it. John Kaiser, I've been told, who's a buddy of mine, somebody went up to him at one of the recent conferences after the drill news went out, and John said to them, allegedly, that it looks like Al got lucky. And I sent him an email back about a week later. I said, John, I think I got really lucky here, my friend. So, yeah, no, it's been a good response from so far. You know, George, I want to stress that this is 4 holes we poked into the ground so far. We found 3 veins, and these veins, we've just hit them in the oxide zones. You're not really expecting too much in the way of grade there. They're more trying to show you where you need to go at depth. And even the way the veins, if you go to our website, you'll see cross sections of our holes. And even the way the veins are coming together, it looks like we've got big targets at depth, big targets along strike. We also have to find out where the source of all this, the plumbing system is. You know, it's a really big project, George, that I'm super excited about. I'm
going to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Yes.
Because we always did that when we always did our videos, and that's part of my job here, because softballing doesn't help anybody. Not that I have, but I want to play devil's advocate. 2 things I'd like you to answer. 1, is it possible, you know, sometimes they're just statistical anomalies, and is it possible that these are by so much bigger than the typical width by several magnitudes, that they're just, maybe this is it, you know, and you got lucky, you did get lucky, but, you know, you're going to deviate back to the norm, you know, you're going to come back to the norm as far as.
Yeah, well, George, there's 2 sides to that coin when you're unique. I guess you could be unique and be on the downside, or you could be unique and blow everybody away on the upside. So far, I'm pretty happy with what I see, George. I see gold in the drill hole. I see high-grade gold on the first hole that went into that depth that you have to be at to find the high grade, and that's at the top of the system, George. So if we were deeper into the system or something like that, then yeah, but we're sitting on the top of the system and we're already in the high-grade gold. And again, that makes it quite unique from the over at the silver in Fresnillo. Most of that stuff is silver. So if I was an analyst looking at this, my question would be, is there any gold around you? Well, about 12 miles down the road in the same package of rock is a 35,000 ton per day gold operation. Yeah, we're in gold country too, George.
And that's the value that you bring to the table at the end of the day. Discounting for the fact that we're all capable of potentially fooling ourselves, you more than most people are going to approach this very critically on yourself, right? Because these are the same questions you would ask if this was George Co., you know, Silver Mines or something like that.
I was looking at you.
If you're looking at me, you'd be saying, "Hey, George, hold on here. Yeah, the widths are several magnitudes bigger. It's gold instead of silver. Maybe you just, you know, stumbled on a little anomaly and you're making a big thing out of nothing, but it's adding up for you so far."
Well, and that's another point, George, that we made in our news release about that drill hole. It had at the beginning of the hole 1.7 meters of high-grade gold. it had gold in the other parts as well. So you're at the top of the system, like this coffee cup, and you're already into the high grades up there, but it's not just like you're cutting across that cup and you're only getting it gold on this side of the cup. We saw gold across the entire hole.
Consistent,
So,
pretty consistent all the way through?
No, it was high grade at the start and lower grade. But you know, when I say lower grade, George, some of those grades, like we averaged 0.3 gold, I think was the beyond that first meter 1.7. And companies would be happy with that. That we look at as more low grade. But why I think it's important is because it's across the entire vein that you hit that there's gold mineralization. That's really important for me. The high grade and the distribution of gold.
You've drilled 4 holes so far.
Yes.
How many do you want to have before you really start gaining unequivocal confidence that you're on to something here? You know, what's your target? Where do you?
Well, from my knowledge of the business and my experience, I think I'm already there.
Wow. I would have thought you would tell me 20 or 50 holes.
For more people to understand what I think I see there, I think those next 10 to 20 holes are going to tell a big part of our story. And again, you know, George, we hit everything we were shooting for that we announced prior to drilling, we hit. We said we were shooting 1 hole for 4 veins, we hit them. We shot 4 holes, we hit everything on every hole. Now what I'm doing is I want to get into that precious metal window on every vein. So the next 10 to 20 holes are going to be shooting right down to about, well, you know, 100 meters into that window. And I think that's where we start hitting the sweet spot. And then I think more people will jump on the bandwagon.
Do you have a drilling season there? Like, you know, because you said earlier, a lot of your work was in Canada and these remote places where quite often it's, you know, you can only drill for 3 or 4 months because snow comes in and then you can't drill this into the ice and snow, and then it melts, it's too wet. So you got this little window. But you're in Mexico. It seems to be Mexico's, you know, nice, dry, you know, warm weather, unless I'm wrong about where you are.
We have an excellent
bigger window.
We have an excellent window of exploration season, George. It's 12 months of the year. How do you like that?
I thought maybe you might have a wet season here or there. Maybe
no. There is a wet season. There is a rainy season, but it's like it doesn't affect where we're drilling. We can drill literally 12 months of the year. We can drive on a road, and it's a 750 meters from the road to the head frame where we're drilling.
So what's the ETA then on those next 10 to 12 holes? What are you thinking time-wise? Ball? And I know you don't have a specific, we can't nail you down to a specific time, but ballpark, is it 3 months, 6 months, 12 months?
Oh, no more weeks, George. We're talking weeks.
Okay. And by the way, we haven't talked about this. I know all the data, I know what's there, but we have not had it. We're having a candid conversation. So you're telling me it's not a month's conversation, it's a week's conversation.
Yeah, no, we're talking weeks, George. Right now, I can get it. It's just a function of money. We're going to need to raise a little bit of money here soon. When I say little bit, George, I'm talking all-in costs of exploration at about $100 US per meter. So I can drill 2,000 meters times $100 US, couple $100,000. That same program would cost me $2 million up in Canada by the time I flew everything in, got the drilling done, flew everybody out. I mean, it's just phenomenal how much drilling we can do here on a really small budget.
So those 10 to 12 holes, you're thinking doing a total of 2,000 meters ballpark?
Well, what I really want to do, George, is I want to start phase 2 and just keep it going. Just, you know, raise more money along the way and then just keep drilling more along the way. There's no reason to do a big funding here and dilute the heck out of the company. I've built this in a certain way, George, because if I have success with the Truth Machine, I want to be one of those stocks of the past that went from pennies into several dollars. And you have to have a tight share structure to do that and some good support. My buddy, Brad Newell, is recently joined our board of directors. He owns 15% of the company. You've met him before. He's a big retailer of hardwood flooring in Vancouver, also owns a golf course out there. He and I have been golfing buddies since we were teenagers. And we want to build something serious here, George. I'm not interested in these little stock plays that all these Vancouver and Toronto guys do. I want to build something that is like my legacy. I have one company here. It's going to be it for the rest of my career, George.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me ask you, before we get to the legacy part, what did you see? In other words, how were you able to grab this property to begin with? What did you see that others passed over? Because I'm assuming you weren't the first guy to have a look at this.
No, that's for sure. I would have to say, and that's I'm glad you asked me that, George, because you know that over my career, I always talk about certain people. Usually it's explorationists, geoscientists, smart guys that I've been involved with. Well, the company that had the project, the private company, also came with a really smart geologist as part of the deal. And so when we started looking at this, Jose Parga is his name, and he's a renowned Mexican geologist. He ran the Geological Survey in Mexico for about 30 years. Wow. Now, George, this was back in the time. The laws for foreigners to be involved in Mexican mining changed in 1990. Before that, it was really just the majors and the government. And Senior Parga had been all over the world, or I'm sorry, all over Mexico, and the world for that matter, actually. And this was one of his top projects. And the conventional wisdom was that this was too small, that the veins were just too small, and that it wasn't going to be a big thing. And when I was, first of all, I was blown away by the infrastructure. Then I started doing my homework. I started looking at the geological structures and everything, and where the veins were and where the work was. And I started to realize, okay, this could have some serious size to it. And Senior Parga all along during this time kept on telling me, I think there could be a big system underneath there. He says, all of my geological friends think I'm crazy. So when we hit that first hole of 11 meters, I phoned him up. I said, Senior Parga, we're going to prove to your friends that you're not crazy.
Yeah, and that's got to be a huge thrill for him, because I'm sure he wants to make good money.
You know how big of a thrill it is for him, George?
Reputation for him in Mexico is obviously just as big.
Well, his reputation would be mud if we didn't get involved, because that project, he's lived in the little town of Ojo Caliente his whole life. The project is like 5 minutes from Ojo Caliente. I always tell him, it's lucky we came along, Senior Parga, because you wouldn't want somebody else finding that out in your backyard.
Well, you know, that what you guys have done so far is amazing. And, you know, I put a grain of salt on what a lot of people say, but I've just done too many videos with you over time for you to be hoping and praying that, you know, just a miracle happens in the drill bit.
George, we hit on every hole, my friend.
Well, what tells me more is that you moved from Vancouver. I look for those kind of things, right? And when I know how closely tied your family, and we're Facebook friends. I know how ingrained you are there. So for you to get up at this age and completely displace yourself and live a completely different existence in Mexico, that told me a lot about how serious you must be about this, that you're really onto something.
You know, George, in my career, I've tried to model myself after, watching certain people, guys like Andre Gumond from Virginia Gold, and Ewan Downey from Premier Gold, and other people that I've watched over the years, and I've tried to model myself after that. And one of the things that Andre said to me, I said, Andre, you never leave Quebec. You found 2 mines there, bought out twice. Why do you never leave? Not only not leave Quebec, he never leaves the James Bay lowlands of Quebec. So under the Hudson's Bay there on the Quebec side. I said, why, Andre? And he said, well, it's underexplored, it's world-class deposits, and I can spend the rest of my career there. When I came here to Mexico, not long after, I sent an email to Andre and I said, Andre, I found my James Bay lowlands. I'll be here for the rest of my career.
That's great that, by the way, you have that kind of network that you can reach out to, make those kind of calls. Because is it a stretch for me to say that with a little more data and a few more things, those kind of networks will be important in terms of raising money and doing those kind of things where you'll get real belief behind you?
Yeah, absolutely, George. When I said earlier that this next 10 to 20 holes is the thing that will get a lot of interest, I'm not just talking about market interest and in the valuation and stuff like that. I'm also talking about bringing in people like that to help me out, because I can only do so much. I like being here, being on top of the drill rig, making sure the drill rig's working, making sure we're drilling what we're shooting for. And, that's what I love doing. And so as we get bigger, we'll need more people on the team.
Oh, I got to tell you, I'm proud of you, man. I really am. And, that says a lot, because in all the videos we've ever done, it's 98% mocking each other and adversarial, trying to figure out who's a better trader and who can pick better stocks. But, man, and what I also like about what you're doing is I think you're right. You may be modeling the new way this industry has to go, because capital is scarce. It seems, look, right now you've got blockchain, cryptocurrency, artificial intelligence, esports, drone.
And then you've got all those junior mining companies with 1 billion shares out, and maybe they got a good project, so their stock will go from 10 cents to 35 cents on a buyout. That's not what I'm after, George. This junior market is crucially important to the mining business. The mining supply chain is brutalized, okay? There's a big move coming for gold and silver that I don't think many people, I'm trying to build this to be prepared for that. But the reason the supply chain is so weak is because nobody's doing serious exploration and finding anything in the right kind of a vehicle. I'm trying to build this, George, at every step along the way. I'm trying to do it the right way. No stock out, great projects, deliver with the truth machine, and try to hopefully see the valuation reflect that. And I think I'm onto something real big here. So I think we'll continue to have a bigger story as we drill more holes.
Right, and I guess that's a great place to end it, because there's a lot more to talk about. We have a lot more to talk about, that's for sure. But I think it's a good idea. This is our first interview with you as El Presidente, right, at Advanced Gold. And I'm sure we could probably talk for 2 or 3 hours, but I think that's a great overview of what you're doing there. It's not just the numbers that have come through, but it's your passion that comes through. It's your belief that comes through in this. And yeah, look, you're not George. You're not George, some former lawyer who says, I'm going to take a shot at trying to see if I can drill for gold and silver in Mexico. And if it doesn't work out, the only people that really will know are my friends and some people around me, and a few shareholders, who cares? For you, this is your life. This is what you have lived. We've known each other since the .com days, and with the exception of some little software stuff, because you are a smart guy and some soft peppermint back then and all that. You have not wavered from precious metals. You haven't even wavered into the exotic stuff, when tungsten was hot and then molybdenum was hot, and, all those things. You have kept to gold and silver. That's what you know.
Gold, silver, diamonds, those are the things I understand.
This is the question I have for you, actually, before we go, because I was going to sign off, but I was thinking about this while we were talking, because you talked about the gold markets. Gold has been under pressure. In fact, it hasn't had just the last couple of days have had a technical breakdown in the price of gold. Let's say tomorrow you found everything you wanted to find. I'm not talking about Fort Knox, but really strong, great. You're pumped, 12 holes come in, and you've got what you think you've got. Is that area viable at these prices, generally speaking? Not your project, because you haven't done a PEA. We got to be, we're not trying to tell people what your prospects are financially there as a viability. But for that area, are the current precious metals prices good enough for you to be viable, or do you need them?
George, as of today, 10% of the world's silver is being mined right here in Zacatecas. You know what? Those questions always come down to infrastructure, power, grade, size. We have all of those things in spades. That's why we've been able to do so much work on such a little budgets, is because of the situation. So oftentimes what happens in the the exploration and the development stages is representative of what's going to happen when you start spending more money on bigger exploration and bigger development.
All right. I'm glad, because I want to get that question out of the way. And finally, probably the question that's burning in everyone's minds back home watching this: how good is the food over there?
Pardon me?
How good is the food in Mexico where you are right now?
George, man, I can't believe how good the food is. You know how good the food is because we follow each other on Twitter, and I keep showing pictures of the tacos. I've become addicted to tacos. Yeah, no, I love the lifestyle down here, George. I'm in a place where mining and farming are what makes this area economically viable. And it's my kind of place. I don't know if Big City George from TO will like it, but I love it here.
No, I give it a shot. One day I'm going to find my way down to you. We're going to be doing this.
Bring a camera. Bring a camera, man, and I'll take you, show you some big mines.
Yep. That
would be George, before we close, I really wanted to say a couple things.
Sure,
you've said some very nice things about me. I really appreciate that. I always like when people say nice things about me. I think most of them are true as well, which is even nicer. I've had a few questions as to why I've joined up with you at Agoracom. And the reason is, George, I want to tell you and everybody else this. I see the future changing as far as and marketing and stuff like that. And over the years, you've done a good job to build a really good audience at Agoracom. And in the past, when I was the chief market commentator, we did a lot of good videos, picked a lot of good stocks for people to do their homework on. And I'm really glad to be back in front of the Agoracom audience to this time not be talking about other people's stocks, but about the company that I'm building and why I'm building it. I'm really jived about being able to do more of these videos in the future, George, and have the hub at Agoracom to work off of and use as sort of a blog, Q&A kind of place. So, I'm glad we were able to get working again together, George.
Hey, we're thrilled to have you, because if you're so, if you're so deep into something, you believe in it, I want to be a part of it, because last thing I want is you and I to be Jack Black and I forget the other actor in the movie Envy, where the one guy didn't join him on his one project. Jack Black goes off to be a billionaire, and oh my goodness, it's
George, you want to know the worst one? You don't want to be the guy from Apple who designed the first marketing guy from Apple. There was 3 partners: Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, and this graphic designer marketing guy. He did the graphic design of their first logo for stock, and he needed money. He sold all of his stock and left the company. That stock's worth, like, I don't know, probably $500 million.
I think he sold it for $800 or $8,000 or something like that.
Yeah, a couple grand.
Today would have been worth, you're right, $500 million.
But when I make this into a really big company, George, it's a good thing you're going to be on board, because I'd have to make fun of you.
I don't think I'm going to sell any of my shares as we earn them through this business. I do not want. I would rather go down the ship, which is probably unlikely, rather than be the guy who has to sit there and watch you in Hollywood. God forbid, actually, you're right by the Dallas Cowboys. You're close to Dallas Cowboys than ever. I watch my Cowboys on my little TV, and you're sitting there, Alan Barron, Loud Buchanan of Advanced Gold in his private box, talking to Jerry Jones about football strategy. No way. I'm not going to be that guy. So thanks for saying that. But buddy, looking forward to have you back. Congratulations on making this big move. That takes a lot of guts. And congratulations on finding the right people, the right project, and so far having this early success. You know, I speak on behalf of everyone. And I know you got some critics, but for the 97%, and you know, the Pope doesn't have 100%, you know.
Oh, George, I think my haters are a little higher than 3%, but that's all right. You know, when I played hockey, George, I was loved in my own arena and hated in everybody else's arena. As long as they were making noise, I was happy.
Yeah, and you're right. They are making noise about you one way or another, but I speak on behalf of all of us who are pulling for you that congratulations, and we wish you the best success in the coming weeks and a few months, because it looks like we're going to have more to talk about, buddy.
Yeah, well, George, I plan on making you have to do a lot of these interviews because I'm going to deliver a lot of good news.
I actually enjoy them, believe it or not. So, you know, with you, we always have a kick and we have a laugh. We talk about the Dallas Cowboys, we talk about Mexican food. So, you know, this, and hopefully everyone at home is having the same fun.
I'm not saying nothing about Dallas this year. That's it.
We'll talk about that on the next one. We'll debate that on the next video.
Okay, buddy.
You've been watching Alan Barry Laboucan. He's president and CEO of Advanced Gold, trades on the TSX Venture Exchange on the stock symbol AAX. To get more information about him, get yourself onto Agoracom. Punch in the company's name or stock symbol. Take a look at the profile information, all the information we have there for you, and then join Alan because he's made himself accessible and transparent. He's willing to sit there. He's willing to field your questions where everyone sees the question. Give answers where everyone's going to see the answers. And to me, that says a lot when CEOs are willing to be on a social media platform like that and be totally transparent, because it means it's confident. They're very confident what they do. So take advantage of it. Ask him questions. He'll love to engage you. Have a great time, everybody. See you, Alan. Talk to you all next time.
Adios, amigo.